All right, it is Wednesday. It's 4:30 p.m. It means that it's time for the office hours here on the ViaMonstra Academy. My name is Johan. Together with Andrew, will be your host for the next hour, answering questions on anything related to MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, Microsoft infrastructure in general. We're pretty flexible. Hey there, Andrew. How are you?
Doing well. We're almost at the end of Wednesday, halfway through the week. I can't complain.
Yep, indeed. All right. Are we ready for some questions?
I think so.
Yes, we are. Let them come in. Alrighty. As usual, we are accepting questions on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. We have a window open here where we can see the different chats coming in. We do stream on Twitter as well, but we won't be seeing any replies, anything you will do on that live stream. So tune into YouTube or anything else if you want to ask any questions. So while we're waiting for some questions to come in here today, Andrew, what's going on in our systems management world?
So I saw a couple of cool things over the last 24 hours that I'm excited about. You mind if I share my screen for a minute?
I do not mind at all.
All right, let me. That should do the trick.
Power on.
So here's.
Yay.
Looks like it worked. Here's an announcement just from earlier this afternoon that I saw start coming across my Twitter feed a little bit ago. Microsoft announced a public preview of Azure Workbooks for update compliance. So what that is will just give us some flexibility and some additional information, I think, in visualizing our data in update compliance, which if you've not used update compliance before, this is a solution that relies on log analytics in Azure, where you can set your organization's devices to upload their update information to log analytics, and then we can report on it. So right now, there's a blog post about this that explained how to enable the preview and kind of where they're going to go with this. Pretty easy to enable the public preview. I did it just a few minutes before the stream started here. First, you have to enable update compliance, and then in your Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you go over to Software Updates, Health, Software Updates, and then Windows. And essentially, so this is showing some data for me already, but you choose an Azure subscription, choose a log analytics workspace that has update compliance configured already. And then you can click over, you get a very quick overview of how many of your devices are running unsupported OSs, how many are missing security updates. So I have a couple in this test environment that are missing some. But if we click on go to update compliance, we get this nice little overview. Total number of devices enrolled, Windows 11 eligibility, and then you can dive in a little bit to quality updates and feature updates. One of the reasons that I'm excited about this is this kind of reporting has had to come from the community for quite a while now, and the community stepped up in a big way. We talk about our friends over at the MS Endpoint Manager, their workbooks that they've put out that use this data and more. I don't see this replacing that yet at this point, but those are great workbooks and visualizations. But you can start to see that Microsoft is putting a little bit more resources, I'll say, towards some of the built-in reporting, which I think is a good thing to have those options. So that was pretty cool. And then we had there's another one I came across. A friend, Nathan Zienert, posted an intro post for what looks like is going to be a series in what he's calling DevOps for desktop engineers. I always like reading Nathan's stuff. He's a pretty laid back, funny guy, so it's easy to digest his posts. But even in the midst of the wonderful memes and jokes that he's got in here, he has a lot of good information in most of his posts. Same with his, sessions at MMS or the user groups that he's part of. But basically, he's this post I recommend checking out. Well, we can post this with our list of links. I'll send it over to you on.
Yeah.
He's talking about how we can implement some of the DevOps principles that allow us to, eliminate some possibility of human error, force us to have a second set of eyes, and allow us to actually test things in development. Using his bullet list here. This is important stuff. I think that sometimes, to his point, we may take that for granted with the amount of permissions and that sort of thing that we're given in some of our environments and the roles that we play as desktop engineers, sysadmins, or just in endpoint management in general. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he comes up with in this series.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you put those links in the private chat, I'll be happy to add that to the link collection. For those of you that are new to these office hours, we do share the links both on our Academy website, but also up on the YouTube channel under each video. It usually takes a few hours to get them there, but they should be there in the morning after these videos has been processed by YouTube there. And speaking of, thank you. I got those. Beautiful. The link collection.
I did notice a nice little call out at the end of his post too. Maybe you're familiar with the stealing with pride.
I never heard of it.
What happens if I click on this link? Wait a minute.
Yeah, I recommend that person.
I think he knows his stuff.
It's been around for a long time. It's getting old. All right. I stumbled across some shiny things, and first of all, let me share my screen. This one here. This is something I was working on more or less a good part of the weekend here. See if I can get it showing here. If you actually click the right button, this magic will happen. Accidentally closed your camera instead of opening this one. This is my cloud PC. It took 5 days to get it provisioned in the system, but it finally did. And I've been using this to testing large application deployments, in this case, the Adobe Suite from Intune. For those of you that are attending last week, you know that I was super excited to finally have Microsoft support increase the limit of 32 apps from the normal 8 gig limit up to 30 gigs limit. That only took 3 weeks to get that approved, but I did it, and it was done last week. And then I started to download stuff. So I have a 20 gig Adobe package that I uploaded, and took me a few attempts to get it uploaded too. But eventually, finally, earlier today, every single byte of the Adobe Suite 2022 came down to my device. So I'm very, very excited about that. Have a support case running with Intune because I stumbled across some timeouts that I haven't seen before. So see what ended up on that one. I am pretty sure it will be the source of a new blog post at some point, but that was what I've been up to lately. I want to see if I can break the Microsoft Connected Cache by having really, really large delivery optimization packages. So we'll see. Fun times for sure. Then Julie Andre Cola, she posted an update to the deployment service or upcoming deployment service. This is obviously not that. I'm going to close those. Have a little bit too much going on here. No, you can be canceled. I keep you, and I will open up a normal Edge browser here. So here, what can possibly go wrong in a live demo? Anyhow, there is an upcoming deployment service was supposed to go in public preview in July this year. Obviously, it didn't. The new goal seems to be March 2023, with some pieces coming earlier. Here is some reading on that particular topic as well. So they just updated this post and can. Something is coming in March next year. I wouldn't necessarily call it soon, but all right. Time is relevant, I'm assuming. So I'm going to make a note of that link, and we'll share that out in the link collection as well. Didn't have time to read this much. I just saw it popped up. Wonder if I can get rid of that stuff, and it still likes me. Yep, it does.
I'm looking forward to the day we can finally test this out.
I mean, if you're really into it, that has been a private preview that you have been able to apply for. But I'm looking forward to the public preview. It's been in the works for a long time. The ability to be able to control both drivers and firmware directly from Intune or co-management, and do the whole thing like when, where, how type conditions, which is very different from the current option, which is on or off for drivers. It's like, oh, okay, where's my control? No, it'll be later. So we'll see. Other shiny things. Friday was obviously a config manager Friday. For those of you that happen to like config manager, and we do, heavily biased, but we do. So this one is released. So if you download the early bird ring, no, but the early ring script, that's when it will show up in your console, and this means that it's time for your lab environments to get an update. Wouldn't necessarily recommend to put this in production just yet. I prefer to put it in the lab for a month or two, wait for the first hot fix, and then go production with it. But nonetheless, there are some shiny features in this release, so I will put the link in the chat for this one. This one is also added to the regular what's new in ConfigMgr type documentation that they always do. The documentation team, Aaron, and others in that team. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think this was. Forgot who posted this. I haven't had a chance to look at myself. I just saw it showing up in the stream here. But there seems to be some sort of integration between Chocolatey and Intune. So I will definitely start to look into that one at some point. I just missed it. I haven't seen it before. May have been around for years, who knows? But I thought that was pretty cool anyway. So I'm putting that link in the chat also. And again, these will be posted on the website. And when I say website, I mean the regular Academy website here, where we have the office hours, or as well the ViaMonstra YouTube channel. And while you're at it, feel free to subscribe. I will be happy to have you on board these Wednesdays. And yeah, that was pretty much that. Chocolatey integration, I call that menu.
Yeah, and if your organization supports using Chocolatey, that can really streamline some of the applications installs that you need to do. It's a pretty cool little thing.
Sure is. All right, any questions out there? Anything that we can answer for you? helps if it's related to systems management, MDT, Intune, ConfigMgr, OSD in general. But we are, as we mentioned earlier, fairly flexible.
Try to be, at least if we don't have an answer, we'll try to point you to the right direction.
Yeah. And then all questions are happily accepted. Gonna double check so our little chat window haven't had a nervous breakdown. Been pretty reliable so far.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and check my stream here real quick. Da, 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 da. No, I don't see anything there either. All right. All right. We have a question coming in from YouTube here. In the scenario of pausing an Intune update ring for 35 days, will it automatically resume itself, or does it require admin interaction? You may have to correct me on this one, Andrew, but I'm pretty sure it did enable itself after the pause expired.
No, I believe you're right. I haven't had a scenario yet since we've started to move over to Intune update policies where we've had to pause. But I believe you're right. It will automatically resume.
Yeah, I haven't tried that one either, but I believe that's, if I remember correctly what I read, that's what's going to happen. If someone on the call happen to know, have tried it, by all means, please put that in the chat, and we're happy to relay that information. So yeah, there is that.
It looks like oh, sorry. I found a blog from Rudy Ooms back in January. Actually, he posted if sometimes devices just simply don't resume. And it looks like there's a fix for that. So that might be useful for us to throw out there at least.
Do you have it on the screen right now?
I do now.
All right, let me share that one.
So basically, this, he starts at this blog will show you how you could make sure your devices will resume updates after you pause your update rings in Intune. Sometimes they just don't resume, as we see. And it looked like if I scroll down here, yeah, basically, some registry keys sometimes just aren't removed.
Okay.
And there's a fix for it. So I'll drop this into our links list at least.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions? I mean, speaking of Intune updates, Andrew, I know your organizations that you work with, you went from having updates in ConfigMgr to moving, not for everyone, but for a good chunk of your estate over to Intune.
Yeah.
Do you ever miss having all these 4 billion knobs and things you can do in ConfigMgr? Are you a happy camper with?
So far, I'm a pretty happy camper, I must say. It's reduced a lot of the stress in the particular organizations that I've made those moves with. We've seen patch compliance go up, which is always good. That's the end goal, right? And as far as user feedback, over several months, there has been none, which I consider in general to be a good thing. I didn't want user feedback for us changing something like that over. So far so good. We've been pretty happy with it.
Sounds good. All right. There was another question coming in on YouTube here. Is Tommy asking, would you recommend going full Windows 11 in OSD scenarios, or still stick with Windows 10 a little bit longer? Let me go ahead and bring up my screen here. So the answer is always one of those consulting answers. It depends on many things. But bottom line, this was from my lab earlier, Windows 10 is going to be around for quite a while longer. Simply the fact that on an enterprise level, pretty much anyone using Intune and ConfigMgr, there is a good 40% out there of hardware that simply will not run it. And now, because of the pandemic and everything around it, it's sometimes pretty dang hard to find new hardware to buy. So hardware that cannot run Windows 11 are still going to be around for a good few years, I believe, or I think. I think there was a reason why Microsoft actually is releasing a new 22H2 version of Windows 10. So currently, obviously, we have the 21H2 version, but the 22 version, which is available as a preview right now, is just around the corner. And a change Microsoft did with Windows 10 recently was the servicing releases. So they are now following Windows 11 with yearly releases. And the rumors are, I haven't seen the code yet, but the rumors is that to go from 21 to 20H2 is that this is also just another enablement packet. So I really hope that will be the case. But I think that will happen. Still 30-month support, nothing new there. For the shinier versions of Windows, meaning education and enterprise, the version you should be using. Windows 11, though, obviously has the same journey, hopefully also AKB, but that will be the usual 36 months support for education or enterprise, and 24 months for pro, whereas Windows 10 will stick with 18 months for professional. Most organizations that I work with, they have decided to stay on Windows 10 for now because they have tested their drivers for that platform. They know their BIOS versions are working. They know their applications are working. But a lot of them have actually started to do a little bit of Windows 11 piloting to see what that ends up with. As usual, when there is a new Windows platform out there, it usually takes the ecosystem a little while to sort of catch up. The various hardware vendors, Dell, HP, Lenovo, etc., their management solutions usually takes a little while to get upgraded. So for now, I think we're going to see a mix for quite a while on these platforms. I haven't stumbled across yet a customer that I've worked with that has completely gone over to Windows 11 yet. They are indeed sticking on this platform with part of their fleet after this.
Yeah, same here. If Windows 10 support was ending next year, I think my answer may be different, but we definitely still have some time with Windows 10. And as you said, we have so many solutions and tools and everything that are tested, validated, they work. And one of the biggest points that you touched on is the hardware.
Yeah.
That's a real problem, a real blocker. So I definitely have to agree.
Excellent. Let's see. There was a follow-up question. Was from I have no idea what that user is. Teams something. When extending the schema to a secondary domain controller on the what I didn't say. English, Andrew. English. I'm planning on learning it. Promise.
You're getting better every week. It's encouragement.
basically, when extending the schema, is there a confirmation window that will notify you that it completed the extension? I'm assuming we're talking about the schema for ConfigMgr by running the extend schema utility. That one returns success or failure right away. And then it's just about replication, and that a little bit depends on your Active Directory infrastructure. But if you just have a single domain with a few domain controllers, it happens very, very quickly that those replication changes happens. Usually talking minutes at most. So I haven't had a problem with that at all. And it's quite easy to verify. You can just connect to and see that it actually have those extra schema extensions in there. They're visible. So you can compare with the LD file that comes with the ConfigMgr installation media. So that works. Let's see. There's a question from Matt. How can we have a group policy to prevent an end user to see an option to go to Windows 11? So this has been a very, very common topic the last year or so, where organization, even though being managed, somehow they have been offered a Windows 11 upgrade, even though that's actually not supposed to happen. The most solid workaround we found, and the community has also found and posted about, has been a few registry keys that you can set on the devices. And that obviously you can set with a group policy preference, or you can have a script, or you can have something set those keys to prevent that offering from happening. Has been a long discussion on Twitter for the past several months about this scenario. If you can find those keys, I'll be happy to share them. I remember retweeting it a while back. I believe it was Stephen Kister probably that shared those. See if I can find them. He's pretty active on Twitter, so they might be a little bit behind here. Let's see what we can find. Searching live is always interesting.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It doesn't look like my searching a separate window here, so thought I'd save them somewhere.
Does the target release version and target release version info registry value ring a bell?
Yes, they do.
It looks like Noop posted a...
Mr. Nile?
No,
Oh,
Anoop.
Anoop. Okay, the MVP, yeah. I thought you said noob. I thought the Windows noob stuff.
Sorry. But it looks like I see Matt followed up. The key we're talking about did not work with a company that has many versions of Windows 10. Interesting.
I may have to follow up on that one. I don't find those right now.
Well,
But it has been a problem in general.
Yeah. I do have the post up if you want to flip over to my screen for a minute, and I can drop the link for you.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So it looks like quite a bit of info in this. article. Here's a way to automate setting the registry key with PowerShell.
All right, beautiful. And of course, I eventually find a tweet from Steven also, so I can share that one in a second.
So I will
Right,
add this to
beautiful.
the list.
Thank you.
I don't happen to see in this article the restrictions on version, but it could be that I'm just not seeing it.
All right, let me bring up the other one that I found also. This one here. So these were the keys this organization set to solve that particular problem. So I'll make sure to put these in the chat collection as well. You just need to come up with some sort of a headline for it. So hopefully those resources might help a little bit. But if you are following Aria Carley or Gabe Frost, you will see many discussions on Twitter as of late for these issues. And it's quite an interesting read just to follow those threads and see what different organizations come up with and run into. So let me bring those names up, putting them on the spot right away. So let's see, I think his was Python, unless, no, let's see. Already updated for Aria Carley. This link I shared probably every third office hours by now, but follow this lady on Twitter. She knows Windows Update, more or less owns Windows Update, but she's on the team working with this every single day. Let's see if I can find Gabe's also.
Yeah, they're both
Byte Nerd, right?
That sounds right. Yeah, they're pretty much must follows in my opinion these days.
Yeah, Gabe Frost. All right, let me get this one first. I have it fresh in clipboard, and then I will post the other one as well. Met them both at MMS in May. Also been with Microsoft for a while. Highly recommend to follow. So I borrowed that name, put that in the link collection. And something that's pretty cool in the ConfigMgr Intune community in general is that for whatever reason, they decided Twitter to be like their main platform for communication. It wasn't until later that you start to see attraction on LinkedIn and other platforms. But even so, Twitter is still my number one resource when it comes for Intune and Config Manager sort of threads going on. A good second, I'll say Reddit. You have the Intune thread on Reddit. You have the SCCM subreddit on Reddit. Good stuff as well for information. All right, so let's see. Another question coming in on YouTube. Struggling with getting a new computer in OSD. It is Latitude 5430. After using the driver packet, it simply restarts with the config manager setup step, and then nothing works. Typically, when that happens, it is indeed a faulty driver, and if it happened directly after reboot, I would suspect a storage driver causing the problem. Dell has some challenges with their catalog as of late. I have not been very good at updating them. I saw a thread earlier this week where some of the newer BIOS versions were causing grief as well during imaging. So it appeared to be a driver problem, but it actually was turned out to be a BIOS version issue. And I believe actually it was Steven that posted that too. He's been pretty active. Yeah, I can show you that one. So this was basically a thread regarding, it's not the 5430, but a different model, where it after reboot will just hang, and it turned to be a BIOS version that you were, if you were too updated, you had a problem. But what I recommend, if you go back to the question on the 5430, my go-to tool to find decent driver packages is the driver automation tool that we also talked about many times here in the community, because it does allow you to very, very simple check if there are updated packages available for a given model. So if I launch this tool, which is just using the catalogs in the backend for information about it. So when you run this tool the first time, it downloads those catalogs, and they store those catalogs in the program files folder here, Endpoint Manager and temp. This is where you see those catalogs. If you want links directly to those, I do have a blog post on that somewhere here. Links. And you can basically, for BIOS packages for Dell, you will search this one. For driver packages, you will search this one. But you can simply compare to if the driver packages that you have is the same as they're offering in the catalog. But other than that, you will simply pick the model in question. So I'm going to pick BIOS in this case, drivers in this case. I'm going to make sure I have selected Dell, and it was a latitude 5430. Latitude 5430. And I would try the latest driver package there and see if it solves the problem. That would be my bet. Sometimes going back a version of driver packages as well could be useful. There have been plenty of times where vendors, their latest and greatest drivers are not necessarily the best drivers. Put it that way. So I hope that helps. Fantastic tool if you haven't used it. Great driver packages.
I'll also add, we just recently ran into an issue. I don't know if it had to do with the Dell catalog or just an update that we were missing from the driver automation tool. We kept having an issue where we would run a sequence, it would install Windows and everything, and then finally boot to the disk, and it would just blue screen every single time. And it was a Dell laptop as well. What it turned out was the driver package that was being downloaded from ConfigMgr was just the executable, and it wasn't extracted, so it couldn't find the INF files and things like that. We updated the driver automation tool, and boom, it worked almost right away. So want to throw that out there because I saw that this week.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Other interesting things that I've stumbled across lately has been pretty much related to installation order. Even in WinPE, it turned out that for some vendors, this actually matters. So HP, to go from Dell a little bit, they actually started to put some of their drivers in like a very strange folder structure. But it turned out that ConfigMgr actually imports drivers in alphabetic order. And as long as the non-VMD RST drivers, so the RAID drivers, are installed before the VMD RST drivers, Windows PE is happy. If you flip the order, not happy, doesn't work. And this apparently comes down to like a force PnP driver mode thing that Intel decided to use on some of their drivers. So that can also cause some interesting effects. That's nothing to do, of course, with the driver package for Windows, but I thought this one was one of those, oh, wait a minute, this was interesting. At the same time, do I recommend that just because HP, Dell, and Lenovo happen to have driver packages with hundreds of drivers in them, that you just download and import every single one of them? No. Pick the one you need. You will find that even if you have 40, 50, 60 hardware models these days, if you are on a somewhat new ADK, you may need like 5 out of 100. And only add those 5 that you need, because then there is less to troubleshoot. Anyhow, I will put that one in. Chat as well.
Don't you miss the days of having to inject 100 network drivers into your boot image?
Let me think about it. No, I don't. Not at all, in fact. See, I got those links from you earlier. Update rings. Here we go. For those on the call, I'm just trying to make some notes here. Or copy and paste the info I got from Andrew. And I'm only so capable of doing 2 things at once. And not very much at all. All right, let's see. Any other question? Most like can you elaborate of just using 5 drivers or 5 drivers? To be perfectly clear, there is for WinPE. It's not for the Windows drivers. So we're talking about the network and storage drivers that you may need in addition to what's in WinPE by default. So if you go to a newer ADK, like Windows ADK 21H2, I haven't been brave enough to start using 22H2 in production just yet. ConfigMgr now actually supports it, but I've seen issues about it. And I also stumbled across an issue with HDA pages that wouldn't simply run in the 22H2 version. That was a sidebar. But the 21H2 version of Windows ADK for 11, so if I take this one here, pop it over to my favorite. So if you are on this version of ADK, meaning version 10.1.22,000, that's the version, you have a really large set of inbox drivers for network and storage. And even if you have a fairly like medium-sized number of models, you typically don't need to add too many extra drivers into the WinPE for those. So you typically only need to add a few more storage and network, depending on the setup. Because the native support in these are pretty good. You also help a lot of things by actually staying away from RAID setups. Use HCTI in BIOS when they have the chance. There is absolutely no point of having it set for RAID if you have like one disk in the machine. And for this one, you don't typically need any other drivers. Whatever in WinPE and storage usually works just fine. So to be very clear, we are talking about WinPE. We are not talking about the driver models. For that, you still need to have 1 package per model. I recommend this tool to create them because this tool does have the option of compressing them into WIM file. So if I go to a driver package and take a look, there is a WIM file instead of 1,000 small files. And it's way faster to download this one than to download a package with 1,000 small files. If I would open this WIM file, 7-zip can open WIM files. You will see that it's still the normal, content of it, but it's just so much more effective to distribute and download. And MDT doesn't support WIM files, but we have been writing PowerShell script as part of the PowerShell extension that actually adds that capability to it. So this one, ConfigMgr support right out of the box. If you don't mind a little bit of scripting, you can also add that same functionality to MDT like that. All right. Thanks for the question. It was an excellent question there.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
A lot of the laptops are coming by default configured with RAID in BIOS. Do you have a method for automatically switching that over to HCI in like a sequence?
Have you asked? I mean, pretty much every vendor these days, they offer tools to allow you to already in the WinPE phase do configuration changes in BIOS. And so you can absolutely have a sequence that you simply launch that is like tiny. That's not a sequence. This is a sequence where you basically just do BIOS configurations, whatever they may be. For Dell, you call the Dell tool, and then you do the settings. For HP, you use the HP tool. For Lenovo, you use the Lenovo tools, whatever. So this is fairly straightforward to get going. Some of them also offer remote management while they're up in Windows, but in this case, since we're dealing with actually changing the storage controller, maybe not the best idea. Might be smarter to actually do it as part of a sequence where you're actually booting from a USB stick, you're booting from Pixie, and then you can do the change. So, cool. Yes. All right. Any other questions? I think we have answered all the ones that were currently in the queue there. Funny how it's like silent for a little bit and then just explodes with questions all at once.
Yeah.
It's like everyone waiting for the first one to ask, and it's like, okay, now it's my turn. But yeah, if you have any more questions, we have still a whopping more 12 minutes to go here. So by all means, keep them coming. I'll have a sip of coffee in the meantime.
Good idea. Hey, maybe next week I'll log in with a fake Facebook account. John Smith asked a question about Intune or ConfigMgr. So if anybody sees John Smith asking the first question next week, I guess I just let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, I think you should have, yes.
I'll have to come up with a new name now.
All right. Darth Smith.
Yeah. There's no way that could be Andrew.
Yeah, it's funny. For those of you who have been attending our Intune courses, we know that we both have a pretty strong heart for Star Wars, both of us. So every single name or username that we use or group name is typically related to anything from those movies. So, yep, you will learn a lot of new names.
Mm-hmm. Or the TV shows now.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff. Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett. The upcoming stuff. I'm so excited.
We're going to have to work a Cassian Andor into our naming
convention. Yeah.
Yep.
Should be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't see any other questions coming in the queue here at the moment. Andrew, as usual, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
We wish you all a fantastic week. I think I finally aligned the images that I wanted. And see you next Wednesday. Thank you, guys.
Have a good week, everyone.